This
Recording.
conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, thank you. So today we will discuss about the config maps. We'll try to discuss about the resource limits as well as some other topics. So main topic of the day is config maps. So config map stands for configuration maps. So today what we are going to do actually, this particular topic is not that much, uh, it is important topic, and we'll have a couple of examples on this one, and then once that is done, then we'll move ahead with the today's session, today's topic that is called as resource quotas and resource limits. All right, so let's start. So what is a config map? Config map is nothing but configuration maps. So why we need it, right? So consider, guys, whenever we create a container right from the Docker file. Let's say this is your container created from the Docker file, right? So you have specified some configuration parameters, such as maybe some environmental values, some operating system parameters, or maybe some key value information, which is important from the application point of view or from the operating system point of view. Okay, and what you do normally when we create a container, we write some kind of Docker file, right? And in the Docker file, we mention it, all the parameters, right? And once we create an image out of the Docker file, and from the Docker file, we create a container, right? Then we don't get a chance to change the parameters, right? If I want to change it. So if I want to change the parameter in the container, what I need to do, I need to rebuild the Docker file, again recreate the container, and then apply it. So this is a little bit cumbersome, right, activity. So Kubernetes will help you to sort it out, this issue of changing the environmental parameter, changing the system parameters, or changing the key value parameters which are required for the containers inside the pod by using configuration maps. So non-confidential data is
Recorded.
non-confidential data is basically shared as a config maps. But if you want to do if you want to share a confidential data, right, then we can do confidential data, then we can use the secret maps. That secrets we are going to see in some time, guys. Later on, we have the topic called as secrets. I will be showing you that. But today we are going to do show you the config maps, right? And this config maps can be done with the help of just normal file, or you can also apply this as the volume. So these two things we are going to see in the current topic. So let me show you this diagram. Okay, so I request you to please input. Okay. So configuration parameters, as I just now told you that why it is required, they required for the application tuning. We require environmental variables and flags which can change logic in application, right? In containers, we cannot depend on the host environmental variables. Each container has its own environment. Right. So for the purpose, there are certain drawbacks of this one. So drawback of the Kubernetes and Dockers and Kubernetes environment is that they are so much tied up to the container or deployment. And if you want to change them, we have to rebuild the containers or modify the deployment. So that makes it difficult. So even worse, if you wish to use the variables in containers or deployments, we have to duplicate the data. And this problem has been solved by using these two important steps which I was telling you a little bit earlier. That is config map for non-confidential data and secrets with confidential data. So today we are just going to focus on the config maps, guys. Okay, so config maps is something which is which we provide to the API, and it gets stored inside the etcd database, and it is a namespace parameter, right? And it can be consumed by pod. You can assign this to the pod, or you can assign to the any you can assign to the content. It is a property of the pod, guys, right? It's property of the content. So we can give this data, configuration data can be used as environmental variables, command line arguments for a container, and config files in a volume. So we are going to see this, guys. So let me show you how we are going to write a config map. Let's say it's manifest, right? So config map manifest can be written. It is a kind, actually. You can see this is a config map is a kind, and whatever the data you want to specify, yeah. So this is basically a config map manifest, guys, and you can see here this is the kind called as a config map. Like a deployment, like a pod, we have another kind called as a config map, in which we can share, in which we can provide the information as a key and value format. You can also pass the parameters, system parameters, environmental parameters in this fashion. And this is the namespace where you want to deploy this config map. I can use default, I can use any other namespace also. This is the name of the config map. This is very easy. So how to define the config map? And I can specify number of data here as well. I can specify the number of key values parameter. Now, how to use this config map in the pod definition or in the deployment definition? So this is the way we can use it. This is a simple pod definition in which we are going to use the config map. You can see this is a simple definition of the your pod. Till this point, everything is fine. It is same as it is. We are creating a pod, and its container specification that we are creating an Nginx, and from the Nginx image container port is 80. But we would like to pass on the environmental parameter to this container. This env is the parameter of the property of the containers. So in this one, we can see here whatever the name you want to give, this particular environment, it's fine. But from where you want to, so whatever the value, this becomes a key value, or this becomes your the environmental parameter which will be used inside of the container. But it requires a value, and from where you will get the value for this particular CM variable, you can say. So value from config map key reference, and you have to specify the name of the config map which you have used. So you need to specify this name here, and from this name which key you want to use. This is called as the key, and this is called as the data, right? So from this config map, which key you would like to assign this to the variable called as the CM, right? This is the way we have to define. So the CM will get a data called as hello world here. Whatever you have specified as a hello world, this data, this value will get assigned to the key called as the CM, or environmental parameter called as the CM. So this is very easy to call a config map inside the pod definition, and we are going to do this one. One more example that I want to show you, and then we'll do a lot of practice on this one. We'll try a couple of examples. And you can also use config map as a volume, right? And now you can see that if you want to use a config map as a volume, how you can use it. Look at this, another way we have declared this config map. Let's say this is my config map called as a Redis config, and inside that we have used these two parameters, max memory and max policy. These are some system parameters for the Redis, and this is the kind called as the config map, right? And here we have passed two values. This is the metadata of the config map, and in the default namespace. So two parameters which requires for the Redis configuration we are passing out. One is the max memory and another one is the max memory policy. These two values we are passing out. Okay, but how to call this? Now we want to call this config map as a volume. Okay, so let us see that how we can do that. So this is the pod definition here. Here you can see till this point. Okay, this is the resource definition. It's fine. If you specify, it's fine. Otherwise, you can. We are going to see this in some time later on. But if you see here volume mounts, look at this please. We want to mount the volumes on the mount path called as a Redis master data, whose name is data, and as a config on the Redis master. So these two, we can see the path has been declared, but from where this will get the information. We have seen the volume mounts right there. So what we are going to do here, we are going to mount this particular config map as a volume here. So just focus on this one, then you will be able to understand this. So this is volumes. What is the name we are giving to this volume is data, and another one is we are giving, this is empty directory, right? So this is one volume, and another volume we are mapping is as a config. And what is the config map file? We have a name called as example Redis. This one we are calling it. And what are the values we are passing here? Key is Redis config. This is the value. And where we are passing? We are passing to the path called as redis.conf. But where is this path used? So this is my name of the volume called as a config. Here you can see this is the name of the volume config. And this is called here. So whatever the value is there inside the redis.conf will get actually mapped inside this one. So in some time, when we will see this example, you will find that redis.conf is present inside the redis.master. And mcdir has been mapped to this redis-master-data. Right. So this is the way we can map as a map the config map as a volume. So let me just show you again. And what is the advantage of mapping this one as a config map? Guys, look at this carefully. So this is my config map file, which is passing the only two values called as a max memory and max memory policy. But where you are passing these two values, you want to pass this value in the pod. But how you want to call this as a volume? So how it is called? See here now. This is the config map file. So this is the name of the config has been called as a volume here. Right, and inside that we are calling two items are there. One is a key. What is the key is there? This Redis key, or you can say it is a key, and it has two values called as max memory and max memory policy. So you can, this is being called here as a key value. And what is the path name it has given? It has used as a redis.conf. Now this particular config map has been used as, what is the name of it? It has been config, right? Now this config has been called here in the mount points. And so what will happen automatically in this mount path called as a redis-master, this redis.conf will get copied. It will map. Actually, it is a mapping. It is a volume. It is getting mapping. It will be mapped there. So what is the advantage of config maps as a volume? The advantage is that in case you use a configuration manager, can config map here like this one, which we without volume, then again the problem will be there. You need to reconfigure the container in case you want to change the data. You want to change the environmental parameters. Now here you don't have to reinitiate the container, because if you want to change the data, if you want to change the key or if you want to change the value, you don't have to rebuild the container again. You have to just make changes inside the config map, and this config map is directly mapped to the volume, and that volume is mapped inside the a container as a mount point, as a mount path. So actually, you don't have to change anything in the container. You don't have to make any changes inside the configuration of the container, environmental parameter of the container. You have to just make change in the config map file, and automatically it will take care of it. So it has a solid advantage if you are using the config map as a whole. So let us now, guys, go ahead and try to deploy this config map in the cluster so that you will understand it appropriately. So I am going to take you to my Kubernetes cluster. Guys, let me show you some config maps. So I can show you kubectl get config maps from the kube system namespace. And you should be able to see some config maps are already there. You can see here -o wide, right? And where it is a namespace component, right, guys? So you can see here this is a cube dash system is a namespace component, and in that namespace you have this config maps. Now another important stuff that I would like to show you. Let me see that how many namespaces are there. Kubectl. I have a default namespace also. So is there any config map for the default namespace? Yeah, it is there. I think somebody else has created this config map. That's why it is showing it. And do you have any other namespace? Kubectl. Let me create one namespace quickly. Kubectl get or kubectl create namespace called as, let's say, production or prod. And here, if you see kubectl get configuration map from the namespace called as a prod, so it shows that there is no configuration map inside the config map inside the prod. So now let's create our one config map, guys. How do we do that? So let me create a file called as config.yaml, and here I can use config1.yaml. You have to use API version and all that stuff. Okay, API version, kind. Okay, then we have to use metadata and specs, right? So these are the 4 parameters that you need to specify in any YAML file. Here also I am specifying. So what is the API version? We are using a V1. What is the kind? We are going to use a config map. What is the metadata? So give the name. So this is the name called as, consider it is my config. This is the name we are giving. And if at all you want to give anything, where you want to create this one, let's say that I want to create this particular config map in the namespace called as production or prod, and the specification about this one. So I don't have a specification here, right? In the config map, we have a data, and inside this one, we have whatever the data you want to queue, right? Let's say that I want to queue the data called as my data colon, let's say hello world. Right? So if you want to specify some more parameters also that we'll specify, let's see this normal config map file, and then we'll come back with the variety of the data. Let me save this, guys. Okay, and let me deploy it. Kubectl apply -f config1.yaml, and you see that it has been deployed now. We have to call this config map inside the pod. We have not defined. So first of all, describe this one, get config map. But this is a component of, this is basically we have deployed in the prod namespace. So I'm going to use prod. So you can also see the describe it. Kubectl, let's describe configuration manager called as config map called as my config from the prod. And you should be able to see what is the information we are passing. This is my data is my key, and the hello world is the data value which we are passing, and this is the name of the my config. Now let me try out one more config1 as a config2 dot YAML, and we will call this one in the configuration file, guys. So let me open this config2 dot now YAML, and let's say that I want to pass some parameters such as I want to pass parameter called as a date, and date is my 27th. What is the date today? 11th of April. Okay, and another parameter I want to pass as, let's say, host name, something like, let's say, config dot server.com, right? Another parameter, if I want to pass, let's say I want to pass the home directory, let's say home is equal to slash, yes, home is equal to slash data, something like that. So I'm just passing a couple of values, but this becomes a value. Let me just put it here as a, just data. So I'm passing on multiple values as a data here in the config map, this config map. Let me change the name of this config. So this is my config one, and namespace is prod. Let me save this. kubectl apply -f config2 dot YAML, and you see that it has created. It has created in the prod, right? And now you can see here, guys. Let me describe this my config. What is the name we have used? One. And look at this, but it, see this very well. We have the data. What is the data? Key is this one. I have host name, this is config, and another one is I have home as an environmental parameter or key, and I'm passing the value as a data. All right, now we want to call this. We want to call this configuration data or environmental parameters inside the pod. So how do I do that? So let's try out, guys. So I have a pod called as, uh, let me use Nginx pod. Okay, guys. Okay, so let me use a pod1 dot YAML. Okay, and this is the, okay, let me just delete this data. So rather than, I will use the command, I will copy this one, so that cp pod1 dot YAML, this is a pod1 underscore configmap1 dot YAML. So let me modify this now, cm1 dot YAML. Okay, guys, so this is my pod, and we are going to use the same thing here, but let me just delete these parameters. Okay, so this is the normal pod, right? And now what I want to do, I want to pass the environment parameters here. Okay, but from where, from which parameter you would like to pass? I want to use parameter called as cm or some other parameter. Let's say that hyphen name. Let me give declare one variable. So let's say that you want to declare the variable called as a date. Okay, and I want to set up this parameter value from, so let's take a value for this date parameter. I'm taking it from, guys, you can give any name. I have just given the date here, value from. So, and you have to give the reference. So config reference, you need to give the value of the config reference. So config map key reference is the keyword that we need to use. Config map key reference, where M and key is capital as well as R is capital. So C is not capital. Config map key reference, and what is the configuration file name, or what is the config map name you have? I have a config map called as, let's say, my config1. Let me use this.
Ramesh, I think you gave an extra space before config map ref key.
Yeah, thanks for that. And now let me give the, okay, so name of this one is colon. Yes, this is the configuration names, config map file name. And what is the key that you want to pass? I want to use the key called as date, right? Yes, correct, date. So whatever the data is there for that date, it will get assigned to this particular parameter. So I have specified 11th April 2021. That value will get assigned to this variable. I can similarly I can assign multiple names and keys here. So we'll try with first of all with this one, and then we'll check out
Ramesh,
another.
if you created config map in prod namespace, you need to create pod also in prod namespace, or you can do anywhere.
Yes, I need to use that one. Correct. So let me use the namespace here called as a prod. I think that will be great, right? So here only we are specific. Thanks for that. Let's try out guys and see how this particular parameter gets assigned. Okay, so kubectl apply -f pod1 underscore cm1 dot yaml, and it has got created, right? So you can see that kubectl get pods from the prod namespace, and this is running. So let me describe this pod, and we'll see that whether that particular environmental parameter has been mapped or not. Is the config map is assigned to this my pod or not? So how do you do that? Kubectl describe pod, right? My pod from the namespace called as the prod. Yes, so I have this description about the, yes, but this is giving, and this is environmental param set to the key date of config map my optional is false, right? Okay, so it has been mapped, guys, right? So it shows that environmental parameter has been mapped. Now, since I have used very different kind of environmental parameter as a date, I don't know whether it will pick up or not. If it is not pick up, I will show you the another key value as well. Since it is a date, that's why I have a little bit doubt. And first time I am using this date environmental parameter. Okay, so now let's kubectl. We have my pod as a, so let's take out by going inside that pod and see whether there is a variable called as date is there or not. So how do I check it, guys? So I think execute my pod from the namespace called as a prod, and let me use print env command. I hope that this should give me some output, and it shows, you can see here guys, it is showing you the date. It has been set here inside the as an environmental parameter. So if you want to see all the environmental parameters of your container or your pod, you have to use the print env command. Okay, so I am getting this information properly. I can also use command echo. I am not sure whether this will print echo $date. I think not. No, it will not, because the reason is that I need to grep it from the environmental. So I just wanted to show here, guys, we can get this environmental parameter. We have set the environmental parameter. I can log in into this particular pod, and I can show it to you. Kubectl execute -it. The name of the pod is my pod from the namespace called as the prod, and let me use a bash. Yes, and here I can use command print env. I'm getting it. Can you see date command? Yes, I got it. And here, since it is a environmental parameter, I think I should get the value. Yeah, it is getting it. I'm getting the value. Yes, guys, by using env also I'm getting the same output, as well as by using the print env I'm also getting the same. So this is the one thing. Now, so let's now watch this particular definition YAML file of the pod one more time, guys, what I have done here. So this is my YAML file. Let me open the config file as well for your understanding. Let me open as a duplicate session here, and I will make it exactly opposite to it. So let me log in. I'll keep for the comparison purpose so that you'll understand it. So now where is my config map file? cd/, it is inside the folder called as Kubernetes. And I think I have used some name called as a config2, if I'm not wrong. And guys, you see here,
I think it is config1, right?
I have used the date here, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, you can see here. Now I have just called only one parameter called as a date inside the my pod. I can call this host name. I can call
Ramesh,
home also, right? So yeah, is anything wrong here?
yeah, I'm in the not in the YAML file.
Uh-huh.
In it says name is equal to myconfig1, and we have opened myconfig2 or what? I don't
No,
know.
no, I have, yeah, I have, oh, okay, okay, okay. No, I have given the name my config one here. See?
Okay, okay, but the name of the YAML file is myconfig2, right?
Ah, right. Yes. I have
Okay,
looked
okay.
at it. Okay. So if I want to call this parameter, let's say host name parameter as well as here, can I call? Yes, I can. If I want to call home parameter, yes, I can call that as well. So how do I do that? Simple. Name is my config one is there already key. Okay, so I need to specify these variables here. If I want to assign multiple values, I need to specify the keys, multiple names. And for each name, so I need to specify this list again one more time for another key value, one more time for another key value. So that way it will happen. So I'll show you one example and then we'll go for the volume map and then I'll take up some questions, guys. So let's try out this now. So I would like to create another pod because otherwise it will give problem for me. So this is the date is there. Yes, 1, 2,
Yeah.
3, 4, 5. Yeah, tell me.
I think here we haven't used the mount. Means the general process we are using.
Yes, yes, yes. I am just showing you the how to use it. Once we are comfortable with understanding of the config map and this how to assign the parameters inside the container, then we will use a volume. Then it makes understanding will be a little bit easy. So let me use here as name called as host name, and this is the same. And which key name I'm going to use? I'm going to use the host name. But I will use here host name one because already there will be something called as a host name from the same config file. But the key value I'm going to use is host name here. And a third one is I have a home. So I can use like this, 5YY, paste it here. So host name I'm going to use a home. Sorry, key name I'm going to give that particular variable is home1, and value will be taken from the home. Okay, that's it. So we are calling all three values from the config file and assigning it to the container which is inside the pod called as a my pod one.
Is it capital home or
Yeah, capital. Thank you very much.
And is it required to give the name as home1? Can't we go with home?
No, we can give the home, but I think home is already assigned in the environmental parameter.
Okay, but then in the first environment parameter, we haven't used these two
Date,
key values, host name and home. Date was there, but the other two were not used.
right. So I am using a
So
three values now, three environmental parameters: date, host name one, and home one, and we are assigning the values from the my config one.
I got it, Ramesh.
Okay.
Ramesh, if we give home, it doesn't override the existing one.
That's why I have not given it. I have given it home one.
So in case if you want to overwrite,
Yes, it will be overwrite it.
okay.
Yeah. So pod one underscore cm YAML. So label must consist of case. Oh, I think I have given a
Caps,
wrong.
yeah, caps.
I think this will pick up, right? Correct. It is created now. Now you can go here, kubectl describe pod, my pod one from the namespace called as a prod. I think it got created inside this one on default. I have not given.
Right.
No, it is created somewhere else. Oh, I have given the wrong spelling. Describe spelling is wrong.
Typo describe.
Yeah, I got it. No, thank you. Yeah, guys, and see here, these three environmental parameters you can see. It's coming fine. Now we'll go inside the container or pod and check out whether these three environmental parameters are attached or not. So kubectl execute my pod one from the namespace called as a prod inside bash. And no, it is not giving me the login. Why?
minus IT. You forgot interactive.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Yes, correct. So I should make a mistakes now, right? So that you people will correct me if I'm going wrong. Good. Yes, pre-TNV. So that now we can see here we got the date parameter, and then we got the home one parameter, and as well as we got the host name one parameter. So we are able to pass these three environmental parameters inside one pod using one config map file. Guys, we can have multiple config maps file. I can call multiple config map file in the one pod definition as well, or deployment definition as well. There is no problem. Because it is a property of the container, so you can use in the deployment, you can use in anywhere, right? There is no big thing. Okay, now before going to the volumes, do you have any questions?
Which one is the, sorry, when you were picking up my question, so I have one multiple config file, right? So which is the best practice? Do you need to create multiple config file or create one config file and create a multiple environment variables into one file? What is the best practice?
It is better to have in one file, and then you can call that file inside the multiple pods. So it is the best practice. So you can just manage only one configuration map file. So basically it should be, you can think about having the one config map file as per your one application or one function. Okay, and just call the sum of the parameters inside that pod, but it should be for the same specific function or application. Do not configure do not configure create the config map file for the multiple application. One config map file for multiple application. Don't try that. Okay.
Ramesh, do you mind explaining? I mean, I think I might have missed it. I mean, the next time when you declare the key values, right, the parameters, environment values, why you have mentioned home one and host name one? I mean, because home and hostname were not used earlier, right? We have used only date. Next,
Yeah,
but then in the next
I
YAML file, yeah.
I will explain that. Just give me some time. Can you put, okay, Abhiram, will there be only one config map? Vivek, you asked me this question, right? And inside that, we have discussed that. I think I have given you give the answer, right? I hope that is clear, Vivek.
Yes, actually confusion is this: if you don't take host name as Suman,
Okay.
you take example, let's say put static value hello K21. One is that other
I think
value may be something
I
different, so that we can see that how it reference two multiple key value into single config file, and we are using on pod 1, pod 2, referring to the same config file.
okay.
Not host name or date or something, which is very confusing sometimes, because we know that these are environment variable, but take some static value or something so that we can see that whether results are showing in TRV.
Sure, no problem. Okay, I will do that. Sumanta, can you give us any real-time use of config map? Sumanta, is that clear now, or do you still need any?
Yeah, I just need one thing. I mean, can you because the pod is up and running right now, okay, which is using our config map, right, configuration. So now if I want to and we have already checked what are the environmental parameter values which are populating, right? Now please go ahead and modify that parameter, okay? And we can see that again, that change what you have made in the config map, that should reflect in the running pod, because that is a real purpose, right?
Yeah, but what will happen here now if I try to apply these parameters to the pod, I need to, let's say that my config file is here, let's say.
Maybe Ramesh, you can create a deployment instead of creating a pod, because deployment will automatically take care of that, the changes.
No, one second. I got it. We can do that. Just to finish his question quickly. Let me just take one example. What is the name of the config file? I forgot it. Yeah, vi config 1.2.yaml, right?
Yeah.
I think I have. This is not that file.
No, this is.
Okay, I think this is the file, right? I got this file here. I will add one more here called as, let's say, I want my favorite dish is vada pav. So I would like to add one more variable called as dish equal to vada pav, right? Or one
So
more
the variable can be anything. I mean, it is not specific, right? Like host name, home, date. It can be anything or what? Is there a variable named dish? Okay.
It can
Oh,
be
because it is your data, right? Okay, got it.
It can be anything depending
It's
on
a
your
value or is a key? The key is, sorry?
Dish is the key and value is vada pav.
Vada pav. So key, I mean, so they are not predefined. You can mention anything. That means.
You can define anything, but why should anybody will define like that one? The reason is that I'm telling you, because let's say your application has 20 variables and it has a 20 values. So your variables will be, let's say, number 1, number 2, number 3, like that one. Key values it will be, and whatever the values you want to pass, that will pass as a at the right hand side.
So, Ramesh, key is dish and the key itself is vada pav. So now you have a config map where your data is key. Now you need to reference this key in your actual deployment or pod, where you're creating a pod. You are mentioning dish, not mentioning vada pav.
Right. I'm using a dish because this is the key and this is a value.
Right.
Okay.
So now let me guys use in the same pod. What
So
will
we are
happen?
not going to mention value. We have to mention key when we are creating a deployment or pod. We have to mention key, not value.
Correct. Absolutely correct. And now let me try out this dish parameter because I have not called this dish parameter in my pod definition. So
So, Ramesh, do you mind showing me the name of the pod which is running in namespace prod?
My pod one, kubectl get pods -oy in the namespace called as prod. My pod is there. One is there. So I'm going to use this my pod one. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So now let me pick up the configuration file pod one. Okay, and this is a big thing we have used. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to just copy these 5 lines again. 5yy, and how to paste it? Just type P, it will paste it. And what is the value that I want to use? I want to now inside the pod
Dish.
Dish you want,
Right.
right? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and we are going to use the same. And what is the key? Dish, right?
Yeah.
Right. Now, if you want to change this variable name, which is there in the pod, if you want to use in the pod, you can change that also. I can make it something else also, right? Let it be dish now.
Let it be.
Yeah. Let me save this.
No, why
And
we need to use name as dish? We have to keep, we can give any dish, or maybe like a dish one or dish two, or maybe but the key is the important thing,
key is important.
right?
Key is no. See, try to understand this particular name which I am using here. This is the variable name which will be used inside the pod.
No, correct. But this is nothing to refer anything. It's just my name, right? But actual key is dish. That is main
No,
important thing.
no. This name will be used there. Let me show you here.
Okay. This is this referring to your config map? Let's say
Yes,
if
it
you
is.
want to put, yeah. Now you put
So
wedge dish. It doesn't referring to any config map here, right? The reference is only key, not name.
this
No,
is the
I think it is displayed as an environment variable in the the pod.
pod as a
The
wedge
name
dish.
is taken as environment variable key.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Let
can
me
give any
see.
name, right? Let's say you put a wedge dish. That's fine. That's what was saying. Yes. Now the actual you have to put the key equal dash, key colon dash, which is more referring to your config map in the last line.
Wait. Let me explain you. Let me explain you guys. Let me wait. Hold on. This is the name which you see here, wedge dish, right? It has a meaning, and this becomes an environmental parameter key. It is your variable, and which will get created inside the pod. And which value will get assigned to this one? The value
Key.
of the
Dish.
dish.
Yeah.
From where it will pick up? From the my config one. That is the meaning of it. So let us see that how it behaves.
So
Ramesh,
the value is actually key of your config map.
Key of
Rame-
my yes config.
yeah, we can take the example of database connection string. We can take is con1, and for the security purpose, we can take the key as other name.
Yeah, that is also
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is also correct. You can do that also. But let's try with the simple example. I hope.
Yeah, let's finish this. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, guys, one thing is there. One problem is there. Already my let me go here. kubectl get pods -o wide from the namespace prod. Okay. So let's watch this, guys. First of all, I'll keep it in the watch mode here. I'll just maximize the screen so that you will get it properly, right? So right now, nothing is going on. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to change the pod. So I'm applying this changed configuration on these with the help of pod1 underscore cm 1.yaml, right? So now what will happen? There is a pod running inside it. I'm just changing some parameter and asking to recreate it. Look at that. This is not getting created, right? It will get created.
The previous command was trying to apply the change.
Ah.
What was there in the
Right, but pod is already changing and the container is not getting reinitialized. Nobody's there to drop that container and recreate that container. That is a problem, right? So what I need to do, I need to create the another pod, or else I need to use this particular config map file as a volume inside the pod. If I am using the volume as a volume inside the pod, then even if I change the parameter, I don't have to reboot the or reinitiate the container. It will get just changed inside the container.
So what does that mean? That volume is a mandatory configuration or key value inside the config map file or configuration? Or?
If you have an existing setup going on, an existing application is there, pod, not as a deployment, pod I'm talking about. Only pod is there. Then it is essential to use the volumes rather than using this kind of config map file, because it will not allow you to change the parameters inside the pod, right, when the pod is running.
But then that is the whole purpose of creating.
Yeah, right. So this is a drawback of it. We are just making we have that example to solving the issue of this particular drawback, how we can call the volumes inside the pod. I'm just showing you this one right now, how we call inside the pod, how to use the config map files inside the pod. So let me create my pod to here.
Ramesh, that means if we want to reapply by using edit command, that thing also not be applicable.
Edit will work. Edit will work.
Ramesh, can you go to the YAML file? You need to change the pod name too. In metadata, I think you didn't change. Sorry, container. Yep.
Container is okay. Container name, if I don't change it, will still work. Okay. kubectl apply -f and
O2.
Yes. Okay, now it has created my pod too. Now inside the my pod too, if I log in, kubectl execute -it my pod 2 from the namespace called as a prod, and this is my bash. What is the problem?
NS, not N.
Namespace. Yeah.
Namespace is correct, right? This is the way we take it.
You need to give pod execute IT pod.
No, it is not yet created. That is a problem. See, it is failed here. So why it is failed? Let's see. kubectl describe pod called as my pod 2. It should have executed from the namespace called as a prod. Couldn't find a key dish in config. Oh, I think we have made a mistake.
Put the key on the config map. Just put it, and it's not on the config map file.
Where I have changed it in my config map 2 or what?
Config 2?
Yeah, that might be a mistake I have done, right? So it should be on the. Oh, I have mentioned it, but I have mentioned in the my config one. This dish is there. So it is my config one, and what is the pod definition? Yeah, it is coming up, right?
Yeah, it is there.
Did we apply the config map after the change? We may not have updated the YAML file, but not applied it.
I created a different pod altogether.
The space is allowed
No,
between
not the pod,
variables.
Ramesh. It is the config map definition. So if we change the config map
Yes, yes.
definition, did we apply that one? Yeah.
No, I have not applied. I have not applied. Config to .yaml. Yeah, now I think it will work. Let me.
You have to change the pod name.
No, that's fine. I think let's see that whether it works or not. Kubectl pod hyphen name space called as a prod. It started running, right? It was my pod 2 only.
Ramesh, can you type history? I just want to see what failed and what was not applied.
No, this was the one change which I had did, right? I added the that dish is equal to vada pav, that key and value added, right? And that was not applied.
But then last time also you tried apply and it failed, right?
No, that was working fine. The reason was that it was getting applied on the same pod, so anyway it would have been failed. Okay.
Ramesh, can you create, because a little bit confused here, config 1, config 2, pod 1, pod 2. Why don't you just have one config file and edit that config file, add another reference, the environment variable, and then create a pod, simple pod dot, pod, and then add change, and then we can do that.
Okay, just give me some time. Just give me this. Already I have just finishing one task. Let me finish that one. IT my pod 2 from the namespace called as a prod, and this is my bash, right? And you can use command env, and you see here now this is a veg dish is equal to vada pav. So veg dish is the environmental parameter, and the value is vada pav of the dish, so it gets called here. So all of these 4 parameters are getting displayed here: veg dish, date, home one, and I think one more was there, right? Something else was also, host name is there. So these 4 parameters are getting displayed. Okay, I hope that the doubts are clear now, right?
So you need to create a new pod. Existing pod will not take a new environment variable, right?
So that is what happened, right? Because it is running and it is not getting changed. I need to edit the pod to get that done.
So instead of this veg dish vada pav, if you declare a volume, then it will work, right? That is what you said.
No, I need to call that config map file as a volume insert, and that is what the exercise I'm going to do now. But guys, let me try it one more time. Just give me one more time. Let me change the config file to this is my config file.
Maybe
right?
a suggestion, Ramesh, do you think that deployment will work here instead of creating a pod? Pod is manual, right? It never going to change. It's as a static value. Maybe deployment works.
It will work. So let me say that, let me try for the pod also one more time, guys. And let me give here the value called as en environment is equal to, this is the key. And I am giving the value called as, let's say, K21. This is a new key and value passed to the configuration file, config map file. Let me apply it, kubectl apply -f config2 .yaml, right? So this has been applied now. Let me open the pod, existing pod, which I just now changed. That is pod1.yaml file. Yes. Yeah, this is the pod one. Let me now add one more config parameters, 5 yy, and let me try out here. Okay, so this is the new parameter I'm using. So what name we can give? We can give the, let's say, academy. This is a different name. I'm just taking it. Okay, this is the key which will get created inside the pod, and the name of the key is env. So whatever the value of the env is equal to k21 should get assigned to this one. So I'm applying on the same pod. I just want to check out whether this is working or not. And kubectl apply -f pod1 chart _cm 1.yaml. So it is not getting applied. It is giving error, right? But if I am using a deployment, in the deployment changes, it will work, because then replica sets and deployment controller comes into picture, and it will automatically take care of that. So in case you want me to try that also, let me try out. So ls-ltr deployment, nginx deployment, this is YAML file. So let me copy this nginx deployment file quickly as nginx deployment cm. Okay, let me open this file, nginx deployment underscore cm dot yaml, and now you want to assign this value to this container, right? So now what I will do, I will just copy paste that values, guys. Okay, and where is that value? Let me go to this particular screen, Control C, ls-ltr vi pod c1 dot, and I'll copy these values, this particular parameters, couple of them from environmental. Let's say 2 values I'm taking up, only 2, not others. One is date and another one is host name, and pasting it in this YAML file. Okay, so I hope this will work fine. So I need to just okay, this is one key, and this is another one.
Name should go one more inside. Host name. Bottom one. Host name one.
Host name one should go. Acha.
Yeah, one more. Is it in?
Is it same?
Okay.
Same. No, it is in inline. Yeah, is it inside the environmental parameter? Yeah, it is correct. Now I'm deploying the new kubectl apply -f nginx deployment, and guys, I need to change one more thing here. I need to make a namespace, right? Otherwise it will get created inside the default one. So let me use prod, and it will create 2 replicas. Save, and kubectl apply -f it got created. Kubectl describe. Let me check out the pods first of all. Yeah, they are running. So I can, if I go inside any pod, I can, or if I just type here command kubectl execute nginx prod, and here if I give here command print env, I should be able to see these 2 variables which I have assigned from the namespace called as the prod. That is important, and I think you are getting it here, right? And now this is the deployment, right? And let me now add in the deployment configuration 2 more parameters or 1 more parameter, config parameter, and we'll see that whether it is taking it or not. So yeah, this is the parameter. Let's say that take only one parameter called as page dish, or yeah, let only take one parameter. Okay, and go to the deployment configuration file. Okay, let me add it here. O, and insert, and let me exactly go below this one. Yes, I think it has taken. Okay, fine. So little bit alignment, name, and key. Okay, so now Let me execute this and see that whether this deployment is taken care of it or not. So kubectl pods, kubectl get pods from the namespace called as prod, and let me watch it. So it is running. Now let me deploy this again. Kubectl apply -f nginx deployment deployment underscore cm, right, dot yaml. We have changed the parameters. Now see what is happening here. It is creating a new container. It has started running. Yes, it is working. Yes, it is worked. Now we can see here. Kubectl get pods from the namespace called as a prod. And now if I want to check the print environment parameter, I can use kubectl execute. This is my pod and print env.
Namespace.
Namespace is important. We got page dish also. See here, we got all these three parameters.
So basically in the backend, it is recreating the pods, but then there is no downtime. So we can say that, it is making.
Yeah, there is no downtime because that these rollout strategies are there, na? 25% maximum surge and all.
Right.
Because of that, it will not be complete downtime. There will be one pod which will not be available, but it will be recreated.
Ramesh, for the static pod, if you edit that pod and added one environmental parameter, will it work?
Sorry, come again, please, if you don't mind.
Yeah, means I am actually saying that if I edit that pod YAML file, means that the running pod, and add one more environmental parameter, then will it work or the pod will fail? Means
pod is failing actually. Pod is failing.
Oh, means if I am trying to edit the YAML, that will also be fail.
Yeah, that is what we did, right? I edited the YAML and tried to reapply the pod. Or if you edit the pod itself and try to reapply it, it is the same and one.
Yeah, okay.
Pod name has to be changed. The same thing happening with the deployment. If you see the deployment, the pod names are recreating, right? It's recreating the pods. So the pod names are changing here.
Because we have a backend for that one, help is there. That's why it's fine. But don't play the, if you try with the static pods or naked pods, it will not.
So whenever changing of the configuration, first we need to deploy the configuration and then we need to go with the deployment of actual deployment or a pod, right?
Right. Ideally, that should be the parameter. But in case of, let's say that you have deployed already something, and now you want to change the configuration of variables, you can still create a config map, and you can attach to the running deployment one, but not running to the pod, running pods.
Yeah, by applying the changes.
It will create a new pods again.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ramesh, I have one question, but I'm going to ask question later on once everyone's questions is done. Let me know later on.
Sure. So I think Sumanta, I have explained your answer now. That for that purpose we have.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ramesh. Yeah, thank you.
Ramesh Prajapati, but in case we need to make any changes in the redis.conf, then we need to make the config file. Ramesh, what is the question?
No, actually I got the answer, but what I mean to say is like since we are making changes in the conf file, which should not be exposed to the outside world, right? So because conf has to do with a particular Redis server. So if you want to make some changes, like so while means like while getting the Docker means like image and container, if you want some variable like for example say connection string, okay, so so like while getting the container, do we need to set some variable over there while getting a container or image, so that when we use a config map to map that connection string to the application or to the database, it to pick up, right?
Right. So basically, we should know what are the variables need to be used inside the application or database. If you are aware about that one, then we can create the config map accordingly, and then we can connect it.
So add to that, like
Ramesh, to answer your question, it is a security threat. If you create a static entry in your image, in container image, a Docker image, all the environment variable in Docker image, then it will be a security threat, because that image anyone can use that, right?
No, you can keep it in the private environment that way.
It is for our project, right? So for our project, we need to have a private hub. So to add on that, Ramesh, one more question is like, can you check like which all parameter we are exposing in from the container or image which we are using?
What is the last question? I think it got distracted a little bit.
Means like suppose like if I want to map a variable, like say for connection string, like we have discussed, I think. So if I want to map this variable, I know in the application pod we need this connection string to talk with the database, correct? In our pod, like okay, for this container, can we check which all parameter has been exposed while creating the image?
Yeah, that we can, like while creating an image, you are saying, right?
Yeah. No,
so while,
correct.
While creating an image, that is mentioned in the, you can describe or inspect the image also, you will get that information. Or you can see in the Docker file also, which are the parameters has been exposed.
No, but like the question is like sorry to interrupt. Like suppose like there are three teams working on it. One team is working on the application, and another team is working on the database. And this team they has given us the image. Okay.
Okay.
And by some mistake, like we forgot to ask like what all parameter they have exposed to us, so that we can map the connection string config map. How we can do it?
So you want the parameter list from the image itself, right?
Yeah.
That is what you are saying.
Yeah.
Right. So then only one option is there. You start the container with that one and check the environmental parameter. That is the one simple solution I feel. And another way is that you have to inspect the image. And inside the image, I think you will get that. Inspect or describe image. I think inspect image command is there that we can use.
Yeah, okay. And I have asked one more question. So can I ask now, or should I wait for the turn?
No, just wait. Is it something related to this one discussion or something else is there?
Yeah, this discussion only, but just to check, like we have created one deployment pod, right? In which we have given the, we have referred one config map. So can we refer multiple config map in a single deployment?
Yes, that you can do. That you can do.
Yeah. Like maybe I want to pull parameter 1 from config 1, another parameter from config 2. Okay.
Yes, you can do that. Thank you.
Fine. Thank you, Ramesh.
Right. Abhiram is asking, do you have any limits for config map in size, in key size? Number of keys you are saying, or the data in size you are saying, Abhiram? I think number of keys you are saying, right? Abhiram, are you there? Config map, because he's asking about, do you have any limits for config maps in size? I don't think so there is a limit. I can put n number of parameters inside my container or my server as a variable parameters. I don't think so that it depends on
Maybe
the
he's asking about the key value pair length, right? That also.
Right, I think so. I will pick up the question once he's online. I think he's not on the, he's not available, or he's on the mute, I think. Does config map used for pod level and container level or any namespace level? Yeah, it is a namespace level component, Abhiram. I think he's late. I think there is some problem with his mic. So let's come back. I will take the questions of Abhiram later. Bolan is saying, what is the purpose of using CM? Bolan, I hope that you got the answer of this question. Purpose of the config map file is to, if you want, if you keep a set of the key and value pairs inside one config map files, you can call that key and values in different pods, right? I hope that is clear, Bolan. Or do you have any other question related to that?
That's clear. Thank you, Ramesh.
Okay, thank you, Bolan. All right. Partha, I can use any name for my config.
Yeah, I got that. I got the clarity.
Thank you. Rajshekhar is asking something called as, can we once again explain about config maps in diagram with? Rajshekhar, have you understood this or still you are not clear? Okay, Rash, I think he's not available right now, or maybe he's on the mute.
Ramesh, can you hear? Hello.
Now I can hear you, Rajshekhar.
I was 15 minutes late, Ramesh. That's why I think I missed the first topic.
Okay. No worries. It is not a big deal. You can
Okay.
rewatch, or otherwise I will just recap in 5 minutes time afterward. Don't worry about it. Okay.
Okay.
Rishi is saying that, do you think we can access Linux environmental variables with YAML file? Quite good question, Rishi. I think I can use this as a variable, right, Rishi? So
Yeah.
if you want,
I mean, are you able to hear me?
yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. So the scenario is I will have some of the Unix environment variables like underlying server. And then on top of that, I will be creating some more environment variables within the ConfigmapK8s. That way, I will have everything in a single config map file, which I want to pass into the pods.
Your voice is cracking a little bit, Rishi. Not able to get clear question.
Okay, I will post the question in the support.
Okay. But if later on, if I will ask this question again to you, hope till that time, if network is fine, you should be able to ask me. Okay, we'll discuss. So everybody will come to know that. Your question is very good. But I want to discuss with that. That I can pass both system variables and variables on pod. Yes, Rishi, that we can do. We can pass both system variables and variables to pods also. Yes, correct. You are saying that you want to pass the parameters to the pods, and while doing the same thing, you want to pass the parameters to the native operating system through YAML file. So you can write an Ansible program to do that. You don't have to use the same config map file or concept for passing the variables to the your operating system through the pods. So if you want to pass the variables to the Linux operating system, your native operating system, use Ansible, and you can pass these parameters to n number of operating systems there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, I guess we can refer multiple. Yes, we have discussed. Anirban is saying, so the difference between mount in config maps and without mount is that we don't need to use a reapply for without mount one. Mount in config maps, that is related to volume that we are going to see now. I will be taking one example for the volume mapping, Anirban.
Okay.
Is there anything that you want to ask specifically?
Means I want to say that when we are using the mount, then I think we don't need to use the reapply for which we are using just right now in the deployment, but it will directly pick up that environment, means environmental parameter.
Correct. So now everybody has got the drawback of it. Now when I explain the volume, it will be just quickly, everybody will understand, right? Good. Thank you for asking. Okay, Rishi, I hope that this is clear. And Abhiram, are you back? Because you have certain questions.
I'm here. Yeah, you're able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Ramesh, can you tell this overall topic again? Because there is something I didn't understand from the way the configuration has to be done to the, so it's not clear to me. That's first thing.
Okay.
Can you take this again? Because it's not clear, because there are a lot of question in between, like you took volume map and then you took configuration. There was different file configuration, so it's not clear to me.
I just want to ask you a question. That's fine. I respect your question. I will definitely explain you again. There is no problem. Only one thing is that I want to ask Abhiram. before taking the question, I explained something. I hope that that is clear to you.
Before taking question means like this whole of a config map itself is not clear to me.
The whole of config map is not clear to you. Okay,
yeah.
No problem. So you have asked me certain questions. So shall I answer you right now, or do you shall I
Just
explain you?
go through the topic, then we'll see. Like basically, if you can review the topic, maybe clear, Mike.
Acha, and one more thing, I will recap the topic for you, and as well as I think somebody else has also asked me that one. I'll recap the topic for you. I will not be able to take the entire topic again. I will request you to go through the videos, or that audio and video, whatever it may be, presentation again. And still, if you are not able to understand, then I will definitely help you. You can raise a ticket, and I can definitely help you.
If you're taking, it's just that no one should talk, and you should tell, and that way it should work. It is clear, yeah.
Yeah, definitely, no problem. If it is not understood because of the questions somebody else has asked, I really take that on me, and I hope that everybody will just keep a quiet and till the time the. But I think today we followed that structure, Abhiram. I think nobody has asked me the question in between when I was explaining. But anyway, I will explain you again. I don't have any complaints against anybody. Let me explain you that. Okay, cool. And okay, so config map file is something which is, let's say that you want to pass the environmental parameters. Let's say you have one pod, or you have one container is there, and in container you want to change the parameters. You want to pass some environmental parameters. Why do we need environmental parameters? Because it is the standard variables which can be used by the operating system of the container, or it can be used by the application of the container, right, or database of the container. So if you want to standardize the variables inside the container, right, so we can set up the value. So if I go to the Linux machine, this is my Linux machine, right, and inside this one, if I type env, you will get a lot of environmental parameters, right? So why these environmental parameters are there? So this is the standard location. In the programming also we use the environmental parameter. Why do we use the variables in the programming? Because once you declare the variable, you can reuse again and again in your program. Same thing in the container also. If you have, let's say that 100 variables are there and some values are there, you can reuse again and again for the different applications inside that container. But the problem is that there is a possibility that you have created a container. Let's say that you have created a container. Now let me go to my dashboard. Okay, so this is my container. I have created the container from the Docker file with 100 environmental parameters. That is 100 variables are there. So inside this there are 100 variables, 1, 2, 3, like that. But what happened, I thought that after some time I thought that, look, I need some 10 more parameters. I need some 10 more environmental parameters need to be added into the containers. So how I can do that, right? So what we'll do, what is the solution for this one? In the Kubernetes we have a config maps. In config maps you have one standard application, or databases or whatever it may be, right? And you have 100, and you say that I required 150 variables, right, where it has 150 keys are there, and 150 values are there. So you can declare that inside the config maps the way I have declared it. And when we create a container, that time you can map these variables inside the container properties. Okay, so this config map is a namespace component. You can see it is a kind of a file or a database. Inside that you have kept all these 100 and 150 parameters with the values, key and values. And whenever you're creating a container, you can map that one. Okay, so while creating a new container, it is easy. It doesn't create any problem. But you have already running container, and inside that, if you want to use the same config map files or additional 50 parameters which are there, then we have to map that as a volume inside the container. So you have a liberty to change the parameters. Okay, you can add the parameters, you can remove the parameters, you can change the values of the parameters, variables, which has been assigned if it is mapped as a volume. So in two-liners, let me explain you that config map is nothing but a set of standard variables with its values to be used inside the container by the system parameters or the application or the databases. So rather than creating the 150 parameters for every individual containers, I have created one config map files. I have kept at the namespace level, and we can call that file in any number of containers. I hope that this bottom level of the exercise is clear.
Yeah, it's clear.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And who was that? Rajshekhar, is it clear for you also? Rajshekhar was also asking the same question, that he wants to have a recap. I hope that he is there. All right, now I will take your question, Abhiram, because I have not answered your question. Do you have any limits for config mapping size in key and size? I don't think so, that there will be a limit for it. And limit will be depend on the application and the database or system parameters, whether it takes that limit or not.
Okay.
Is that clear, Abhiram?
Yeah.
Okay, because system may not accept the variable variable value which you are defining the config map, because it doesn't understand that. It might have that limitation. Okay, and of course there will be limitation at the upper side, that how big variable or value you can specify, right? Okay, and does config map use for pod level and container levels, or it is a namespace concept? Okay, it is not a pod level or it is not a container level concept. It is a completely a namespace level concept. But we assign the variables to the container. Okay.
So it's at a container level also, right? Because application development are the container level, so all these variable are used at container level. So
config map is a namespace component, but that config map's keys and values are used at the container level.
Okay.
So Ramesh, when you say namespace component, config map created in one namespace cannot be used in another namespace, right? Pods created in another namespace.
Right. Correct.
So generally, I mean, not at this time, but when you get time, can you just let us know what components are specific to namespace and what components can be used across namespace?
I will show you that, not an issue. There is one simple command is there that I will show you.
Okay, sure. Thanks,
Ramesh. Abhiram is saying config app maps are used for general configuration. Then why it is named as a config map volume? No, config map can be attached to the container with the help of volume methodology. There is no config map volume as such.
So volume, Ramesh, is like you were talking about volume with the directory and all. So other than that, the volume can be also used for a general way of in declaring environment also, or that's where I was confused.
No. Don't get into that one. Config map volume is nothing but I will define a config map and attach that config map as a directory inside this one in the container, so that I have a liberty to change it whenever I want to change. Even though my pod is running, application is running, still I can change the config map files if it is mapped as a volume. Okay, I think I answered your all questions, Abhiram. Is there any other question that you want to ask?
Yeah, can you go to the config files and explain that, Ramesh, because that from the files perspective, yeah.
Which one? This one you are saying? Again,
No, yeah, the one which you use for configuration and the pod, the YAML file, yeah.
Okay, I will just show you this one. I will try to explain on the benefits of the others time also. Let me just open this one again.
Yeah.
VI. config2, right? We have used config2. No, I have used config1, right? Or I have used config2 only. I have used config2 only. So you can see this one. This is my config map. And inside the data section, I have used this is my key and this is the value. This is my key. This is my value. Right? And how I call this key and value, let me show you in the different terminal. So I have used one as pod1 dot underscore cm1 dot YAML. Now you can see here how I use this. How I called these values from the config map. Look at this is my environmental parameter, and name I am using as a date here, and value from my config1. This is my configuration name, and we are calling this as a key, and whatever the value of the
Ramesh,
key is there, it will be mapped to this. Yeah,
I will ask the question later on, but I have related to this only question. Maybe if you think that I can ask the question on the same screen.
Just yeah. Let me finish. If there is any question for the Abhiram, then I'll definitely come back on this one. Abhiram, is this clear now? How we are calling the keys and values from the config map inside the pod? If you have still any question, please ask me, Abhiram.
Yeah, sorry, I was in mute. Yeah, so you're putting the date as a key here, right?
Right, date as a key, because it is my key here. You see here, this is my key and this is my value. Rajshekhar, I hope that you are also listening to me. And inside this, when I want to call this config map here, so this is a name. What is the name? My config. I am referring to this my config. You see here. And which key you want to use from this what config map file? This is the data I'm using. Right, and the value of this date or value of this key value, whatever the date I have assigned is 11.4, it will get mapped to this particular variable. Whatever the value of the home one is there, sorry, this host name is there, it is getting mapped to this host name one. Okay.
Okay, but again, one thing is like, I don't know why they have designed like this, but they would have, I don't know why they have not given a key value here rather than, round robin way of doing the key map value, right? I mean,
Yeah, right.
And just,
so you might be thinking that why should I use this name again? I've just used this key.
Again, yeah. So that's where I was kind of trying to digest this.
Yeah, I hope that this is clear now. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But Ramesh, one question on this only. Like,
Vivek. One second, Ramesh. 1 second. Vivek, can you ask me a question? What was the question on this one? Ramesh, I will definitely take your question, please.
Yes, Ramesh, my question is similar here is we are creating one config file, right? And then we are using that config file as a reference, creating pod or deployment. But my question is this, let's say you have multiple, let's say home, dish and env keys, right? Data, Vadapav, K21. But I'm creating a separate stanza for each, keys. Instead of that, let's say I have one config file and I want to use a blanket. Whatever the environment variable it has, home, dish, env or xyz, it should automatically pick up everything in my pod definition. I don't need to mention as a stanza. You understand what I'm saying? I want to mention only config file name, and whatever the config file name has the key value, it should automatically apply.
So you want to say that you, whenever you are declaring the pod specification, you are writing the pod specification or deployment specification, and inside that there is a container, and inside the container, this is the property of the container, right? Setting up the environment.
Right. I want to apply these all three key values automatically instead of rather creating a stanza wise 3 stanza. I don't need to specific. I just need to hey, this is my config file. Apply it whatever it has. It has the information.
I think for that one you have a solution. You can use a Helm charts to do that one. So you can define the keys there.
I'm not using multiple config file, right? I know that config Helm chart is for the package manager to create multiple config, but I'm not using the. I'm as a simple statement. I have one deployment requirement, and deployment reads one config file, and the config file has multiple key value data like home, dish, env, right? I don't know to now I know how to create my deployment using that config file. I just need to mention the config that, hey, this is my config file as a reference. Pick up that file from the config file, whatever the name you have given, and whatever the key value it has, it should apply automatically as an environment variable. I don't need to give the name, date, name, host name home one, name K21, I'm env. You understand what I'm saying? I don't want to create multiple stanza. Why should I create a multiple? If I have 30 variables, I have to create 30 stanza.
So my question is, if we already know what all variables we want to introduce to my pods, which are part of that deployment, okay, then why can't we put all the variables in the Docker file? Why or in the image? Why I'll be
I got your question. I got his question. I got the Vivek's question. One hold on.
The configuration. So configuration will keep on changing. So it should be a generic. It should not be put into the Docker file. It should be coming from the outside world.
Yes, Ramesh, this is the same question that you want.
That's a different question. Docker file is a different question which Sumanta asking, but that's a separate. But my question is simple. If I have one config file,
Vivek, I got your question. Hold on, please. Okay. Ramesh, have you want to do you want to ask a similar kind of question on the same thing, or do you have some other question?
I forgot my question.
You forgot your question. Okay. Right. Okay. I will just elaborate the Vivek's question also, what I understand, and I will explain that also. Sumanta, don't worry about it. I got your question.
Thank you, Ramesh.
Yeah, thank you very much. Rishini, I think Ramesh, if you have any question, if you remember it, please ask me. Right? And Vivek, give me some time to. I understood your question that how we can pass the all parameters in one go without creating this 30 stanzas if I want to pass 30 variables. Let me just check out what is the alternative for this one rather than the volumes. Okay.
Ramesh, I recollected a question. Can I ask?
Yeah, please ask.
So just be on this page only. So the environment, after environment, you have a key right name equal to date. So I think that date value, which is mapped to the key value of the config map, this has to do with maybe the application where it will be replacing, right? And
correct,
this is and this has to be the name which is there in the application.
Correct. Whatever the name you want, you might be using the app underscore date, or might be some db underscore date, something like that.
So this
name you have to create.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And yeah, one more question was there. Maybe afterward I can ask. Like you mentioned, like we can delete the environment variable. How can we delete it using config map?
You can delete from the pod you are saying, or from config map itself?
No, means anyway, like if you are able to create a variable using config map, like this will be the environment variable, right? Date and all, it will be going and store that. So in case in future, if you want to delete certain variable, how to delete that? Whether you have to use map or manually you have to.
We have to reapply. I think we have to reapply once again.
Yeah, that is also there. We have to reapply the config map files. But once his question is really good, valid question. Let's say that in the pod I have 100 variables, but which have not been created from the config map files. I might have created by the logged into the container and directly created that. So that kind of variables will not get removed from the config map files, right? Whatever the variables which you have specified in the config map file, inside the pod you have called, and if you are changing it, you have to reapply it and it will go away. So the answer which is given by the some other gentleman, that is correct, that you need to reapply it to remove the variables. My question is different now, depending on your question, that in case you have not assigned the variable by using the config map files, which is inside the pod right now running container, and if you want to remove that, how to remove that environmental parameters? Can we use the config map file for that? That is the question coming in my mind. So, but you got your answer. You can reapply it by removing the parameters. It will remove it from the system.
Yeah, I got it, but I'm waiting for the second answer then.
Yeah. So you are waiting for the how to remove the environmental parameter from the pod, right? That is a.
Yeah, because since this question has arrived, so it's there. Yeah, I can wait for that. No problem.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. So actually, how do we remove the environmental parameters from the system? That is the way we can do it. But I don't want to go into that one. It will take a lot of time. Okay, so
Ramesh,
just
that
answer.
can be possible through Ansible.
Which one? No, that is, see, you can manage all the parameters or add the parameters or remove the parameters of the operating system level by using Ansible. Ansible is used to, let's say you have 100 servers are there, and if you want to change the parameters in one go on all 100 servers, you can use Ansible. Okay, and but if you have only one environmental parameter inside the system, and if you want to remove that from the Linux system, how to remove that one? So it is a system parameter actually, and if you want to remove that, you have to go to the kernel level space, and you have to remove it from that space. Then only it will get removed. Okay, now, so let's move ahead, guys. We have something called as, yeah. Partha has asked config.yaml file is common for any deployment, right? If that is the case, I can create and use.
No, I got it. I saw that parameter pod. I mean, namespace, we are highlighting it.
Right. And Anirban is asking some question. I run a command kubectl API to get API groups, but it is showing API version. You can see the API group also.
Yeah, just now I run that command, but till it's showing that API resources. Not API resource, that API version. Don't know why it's showing for me.
This is the output you got, right? This is the name. This is the short name, API group, namespace.
For you it's API group. For me it's showing API version.
Which system you are using? Which cluster you are using? Kubernetes,
Yeah.
same deploy. Same deploy.
Yeah.
I think it is a version difference, Ramesh, you are probably running 1.18 and other gentlemen might be running 1.20.
Okay, maybe that.
Yeah, 1.18 it is. Yes, you are correct. So what is the difference you are getting there?
Yeah, for me it's a version 1.20, and here it's showing API version. Means instead of API group, it's showing API version. Other things are same.
Okay. And somebody else also asked me the question, how to find out whether this kind is namespace kind component or this is a cluster component.
Yes,
I
Ramesh.
forgot that. Yeah. So can you see, this is we were trying out the namespace. This is a cluster level component here, and persistent volume is your cluster level component. It is not a namespace component.
Can
but
we
pod
filter
is
namespace equal to true?
What you want actually?
I mean, I just want to know which are all namespace specific alone.
No, sorry, I need to use this another command. Yeah, that you can do. Yeah, this one are true.
Oh.
I can use the count also.
Or there is no filter command for this? Just.
Yeah, it is there. Namespace is equal to this command is there. You can use
Oh.
this command. It will give the list of all the objects which are having namespaces. This is also convenient.
Thanks, Ramesh.
Ramesh, one more thing I asked in the chat that for the manifest of the config map, we have the parameters API version, kind, metadata, and data. And I think there is no spec. So any more parameters are there for the config map?
No, I think there are only 4 parameters. That you can check it by using this command also. kubectl explain. That you can find out from this one. But as per my knowledge, it has a main 4 components. Metadata is there, there is a immutable is there, then binary data is there. Some, but predominantly API version, data, kind, and metadata.
Fine. Okay, okay.
Okay, guys. So we have to discuss about now volume. How to? We have discussed about the volume, but how to use config map file as a volume? That example I want to show you, right? So, what is the time? Is the time is oh break is okay, guys. Take a 10 minutes break, and then we'll come back and we'll take it the discussion ahead. Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah. Please take a break of 10 minutes. Quickly come back, guys. Once we'll come back, we'll have a discussion about the volumes as well as resources.
Sure, Ramesh.
Yeah.
This conference will now be recorded.
Yes, thank you. So the question which was asked before the break, guys, that was how we can get the multiple, how we can define the multiple values in one format, in one. See, this is the way we can define it. I just was going through it, but definition of the key value formats in the config map file can be done like this one. But the assignment of the same to the pod is done by using the same way which I have shown you, right? So we can have a shorter file, or we can have a we can create the config map file from the file as well. Okay, but while assigning the config variables to the pods, we are not able to get all the files from the path and apply it. So we can use, you can define a key other than the file name using the data section. So this is the way we can do that one. One second. So in short, what I want to say that we can define the keys and values in the config file from different file also. So it can reduce your workload. Okay. So let's go ahead, guys, and try to create the complete the exercise of the config file by using the volume. So I have one config file called as redis.cm file. So I'm going to setting up a configuration file with volume using config file. Let me just open this file, guys. Okay, and we can see here vim, sorry. And then we see this is the API version v1, and this is the namespace. We are using the default namespace and creating a config map file whose name is example redis.config, and we are passing these two variables here. So similarly, I can pass multiple variables as well, right? So let me save this one and apply this configuration file kubectl apply -f redis.cm YAML file. So this config map is getting applied. Cool. Now kubectl get configuration map, and yes, we have that. What is the name of it? This one. I can describe also kubectl describe config map, whose name is this one. Yes, clear. Till now, this is everything. So what is my data? Data is my Redis config, and what is my value? This is my key, and what is my value? These are the two values. Now we want to assign these particular values to the variables inside the pod using the volume. So let's do that one, guys. So I have the pod called as a Redis pod. So let me open this YAML file and show you the declaration here. Okay. So this is my pod, and up to this point you can just keep it, just you can just ignore this one because it is a standard declaration only from this to this particular path. But from this one, we have to discuss about it. So as I told you earlier, this is my volume, one volume that is called as a empty directory that we are mapping. This is my, we have named this as a data, and this will be mounted on this here. Okay, mount point is redis/master-data. And another volume is there whose name is config. We can give any name to this one, but we are using a config map called as an example redis.config, which you have created right now. And whatever the values of that keys are there called as redis.config, that has been pushed into the redis.conf, and that redis.conf has been mapped inside the folder called as redis master. This is the mount path. So what we'll do when we deploy this configuration file per pod, inside the container, there will be two paths. One is redis-master-data, which will have nothing, and another will be there that is /redis master, which will have a redis.conf file created, and inside that these two key value of these keys will be stored called as redis-conf. So let me show you that guys quickly. Shift:/WQ and kubectl apply -f redis-pod.yaml. Yes, and now it is applied. Now let me see kubectl get pods quickly, and it is creating a container. I hope that it will get created. Yeah, it is running, right? And if you see the description of it, kubectl describe pod called as redis. As you can see the bound points here. So you see here volumes. So first volume is a data, which is empty directory, nothing is there inside. And second one is its config file, and that is nothing but which config file you have mounted as the name of the config file is example redis.config has been mounted as a config. So now let's go inside the container and see whether it has been created these two files or not. So kubectl get pods, and this is my redis pod. Let me log in inside that kubectl execute -it. This is my redis pod. Inside that bash it there. So I am inside the redis pod, and you can see this is the directory called as /data. Nothing is inside this, right? So this is the config map file which you have created. You see here, sorry, pod. And this is the data directory, right? And it is mapped to the redis-master-data. So let's see that what is there inside that redis-master-data, and you will not find anything because it has been mapped to the empty dir, right? But there is another map that is a config map. This you see here, example redis-config has been mapped to the redis master. So I think I will be able to show here properly. Same example is there. Now here you can see this is another volume called as a config which is created. This volume is mounted on where redis-master. And whatever the file has been created here, redis.conf, and the values which are inside that redis config has been put inside this redis.conf, and now it will be available inside this path. So when I go to that location, I'm inside the pod, and now try to see cd/redis.master/ okay, and see the file, and inside that you can see this values. So whatever is stored inside the config file, config map file, has been mounted as volume on the path called as redis master, and inside that we have this values inside. So now let me try to do one thing. Now let me change the parameters. Let it be like this one only. I'm not going to get out of this container. So let's go to the another location. I have vi redis cm, and I would like to add some more data here. I would like to change this max memory to 4 MB. Okay, So we are changing the values of this parameter, guys, right? And probably let me try to add one more value called as, let's say, mean memory is equal to, let's say 2 MB, something like that. I'm just specifying. Let me deploy it. And now we have just changed the values, right? And that value has been now mapped to the volume. So I am not doing anything right now. Let me do not apply the new parameter. Only redis cm.yaml. Okay, now I just see this. So this is 4 MB. Earlier it was how much? What is the value of it? If you see here, it is 2 MB, right? So now let me see if there is anything here. 2 MB. So let me deploy the config map file now. Kubectl apply -f redis.cm.yaml. Okay, it is applied. And let's wait for some more time, guys. It is still showing 2 MB. Let me log out and log in again. I think it should have taken it. cd/redis. This file is there, and cat redis.conf. It is still not changed. It takes a little bit some time to change the parameters.
Ramesh, have you applied?
Yes, I have applied. I have applied it.
But I think for the volume one, would it required?
I think it should work actually. It should work. I have applied. Okay, let me see now. Yeah, you can see it now. Check. This has been got created. It takes some time, but it gets applied. So there is some timeout period of some 15 seconds or some period is there. Once that period is crossed, then new parameters will get attached. So now I don't have to recreate the file, pod. It will get automatically mounted inside the container. Is that clear? Any questions on the volume, guys? Please ask me now. Okay.
So it will reflect in the environment variables of the container.
Yeah. Now, if you set up that way, it will definitely get it changed into the environmental variables.
Ramesh, can you please add one more parameter and check without reapplying?
Without applying?
Yeah.
I think it will not.
Because then the difference between previous means the deployment one and this one.
No, but because we are deploying the this config map files, not pods. Pods are as it is. We are not changing anything there.
Okay, means only the config map you need to reapply. Okay.
This is what I'm changing it now. Let's say I'm putting here paste is equal to 55 MB, something like that. This value I'm putting it may not be useful at all. Okay, but if this is no static value, if I don't apply, then how Kubernetes cluster will understand that there is a change in the config map file, right? So yeah. Okay. So now this is getting applied, and if you wait for some 10 to 15 second time, I think we should be able to see that test parameter as well inside the redis.conf file.
But Ramesh, this volume concept only works maybe useful when you have a stateful application where you have database servers or pods. if you have web application, then stateless application, there's no static volume requirement, or maybe like sizing. I'm little bit trying to understand where it should be useful, this volume one.
Volumes are useful when you have a application where lot of variables or parameters are getting changing on the fly. Okay, you need to change the maximum memory or open file limit, or maybe you want to change the processes which are required for your uh, machine, right? Number of processes, maximum number of processes, all the parameters which come like ulimit command, right? Which you give that information, ulimit happening. Yeah, if value also there. This is the parameters if you want to change continuously. So that time also you can use it. So if you are continuously, in the sense that it is not like every second and now and then you need to change the parameters. There will be certain limit. Once that is crossing, then you can change into the volume, the config map file, and if you apply that one, it will automatically get reflected. Can you see this, guys? Test 55 MB has been come into the pod now as a new variable parameter.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you. What is the main difference between config map and Redis CM? No, it is the name of the config map file, nothing else. This one which I have used, right? This one you are talking, right, Bolan?
Yes, it's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, this is just a name given to the file. I can give any name to this one. It is a config map file only. Kind is config map only. See here.
But here I can see here when you were declaring excuse me, on the port configuration, on the previous example we had, there was config map reference, but can you go back to the port YAML file?
I'll just open that. Yes.
Yes, I mean on the config map. Yeah, on the other one, on the previous example we were working on, it was config map reference, like reference, and here is just config map. Is there? Can we still write this way or the other way?
No, you can use this way also. The reason is that the environmental values, that is when I use the command print env to get all the environmental parameters, right?
Yeah.
That values are also stored inside some file, and that file is also inside some directory, some folder. So if you create a config map file, and if there are hundreds of the variables are there and keys and values are there, and if you know the folder in which that file is getting created, you can map this your volume which you created to the mount point, like this one. In fact, this is a little bit advanced version of the thing. You can say we can use it rather than creating a multiple environmental parameters inside one file, key values, and then calling them inside and mapping them inside the environmental parameter. Rather than that, we can use this way also. I think this way is the fast value.
Sorry, Ramesh. And then I think the what, if I may, and then he is asking about the actual syntax. There is a syntax in a config map, and here we use the word config map, the syntax. In the previous one for environment, it calls config map ref colon, and that is what he is asking about.
Yes, right, absolutely correct. And what I'm trying to answer the question of the Bolan is that if you want to map a single value, Bolan, if you want to map a single value, then you have to use that earlier one syntax, reference wala syntax, right? But if you want to use the set of the values inside the pod, then you can. This is the better way to do that one. So reference key Syntax is to map a single key value to the parameter inside the pod, not multiple one. But with the help of volume mounts, we can map the multiple values. I hope that is clear now, Golan.
Yes, thank you, Ramesh.
And for volume mounts, okay, the syntax is like this only. We can't use key reference.
No, we can't use that reference. This is easier one, in fact.
So can we check the properties of Redis pod?
Pod actually you are saying?
Yeah.
Inside the definite, this is the properties actually. You want to see
inside the pod? Yes, the environment.
This one you are saying whether it is applied or not, right? As a print.
Right.
Okay. That is a little bit doubtful. Okay, but anyways, because might be Redis master is used or Redis.conf is used, because I don't know the behavior of the Redis pod. What is the name of the pod?
Redis, right?
Redis. Kubectl execute Redis bash. No, not bash. I want to print, right? Print env. No, this is not coming here. This is not coming here. So what I need to use inside the config map file then, or this one, we have to change the methodology of assigning the variable parameters, because in the Redis it might be using redis.conf file to see the configuration.
Okay, got it. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I hope that everybody has understood the volume concept, how we can map the config map files into volume. All right, yes, thank you. If you have any still question, let me know.
Ramesh, quick question on that, elaborating from the previous one. Can we not do a cat of the Redis conf within that particular one? Is it possible to do that?
Yes, we can do that. But what is the location now? That location need to be Redis master, right? Yes. And inside that there was a what is the file name?
Redis.conf. Redis.conf.
I hope that this is clear, correct? It is given.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. So let's move ahead with the new topic now. I hope Redis is a separate third-party hub. Yes, correct. Is there any other question, guys, for on the config maps? Is that clear? Every one of you?
One last thing. So that thing. So if you are going with the volume mount concept, right? Okay, network config. Then we can make this change on a running container. Okay. I mean, not necessarily it has to come from a deployment. Right.
Right. You can work on any pods also, right?
Okay. Thank you.
Ramesh, what you did in the last means that the map for the print environment, I missed it.
No. Sumanta has asked me that how to see the parameters which are now passed by using the volume, the way we have passed by the volume methodology, how to check that. That was his question.
Okay, means can we able to add this in the environment file?
This can be added into the environmental parameter. There is no problem. Only thing we need to know where is the environmental file. So when I fire this command env, from which file it comes? From which file this parameter comes? If I know the answer of this question, then I can easily map that into that file.
Okay.
We can append that one. It will read it. Not an issue. We can do that.
Ramesh, config map is the kind which doesn't have a spec, right? Instead of that, it is having data.
Yes, Ranjit, correct.
Okay. So this is the only kind which doesn't have spec, or is there any kind which doesn't have spec?
Yeah, I think there are some more kinds are also there. They don't have a specs. Example wise, I think namespace is also one of the kind which doesn't have the spec namespace.
Okay.
Yeah, just to show you namespace called as idly hyphen dry run hyphen o YAML. Let me check out. Yeah, it is spec is there, but it is a blank. I need to check. But there are certain kinds are there which doesn't have the spec. Some of them. Config map is one of them. There are certain some more are there. Okay.
Got
it. Thank you. So let's now move ahead with the new concept, guys. So what is the next concept that I want to take up? I would like to take up the next concept of the resource quota. So limiting the resource with resource quota. This is what we would like to now try. So what is the meaning of, first of all, resource quota? That we'll try to understand. Then we will see that how to apply the resource quota. That also we'll see. Okay, there are two important definitions here. One is a hard and another one is a request and another one is a limit. There are two important components. Let me explain you guys with the diagram. Okay, let's move ahead with this one. So consider that you have, so guys, we are starting with the resource quotas now. And think about the situation that this is your container. And in container, now you want to assign a resources. So what is the resources? That is, you want to assign a CPU or you want to assign a RAM. Okay, so how much you want to assign? So depend on how much it is assigned to the namespace. So right, default, it is unlimited. So this is the namespace considered. So resource quota is also again a namespace component. Resource quota is also a namespace component. Okay, so this is my one of the container, and we want to assign a CPU and RAM. But first of all, I need to specify the quota for the CPU and quota. How much maximum CPU and RAM can be used by this namespace? So namespace can be my any application or any project. Let's say that namespace called as, this is my prod namespace, and I would like to apply quota as a CPU. We can have one core, and we can say that memory you can have, let's say, 1 GB. So this becomes my request kind of stuff. This is my soft limit. This is my soft limit. When I say soft limit, that means it is just for specification purpose. It doesn't, even if you reach one core, let's say when I say it is a soft limit, what is the meaning of that? If my pods inside this namespace have consumed one core as well as 1 GB of RAM, and if you try to deploy one more pod, still it will allow you to create, because it is a soft limit. Okay, but when I define this limit as a hard limit, that my hard limit is 2 GB and 2 cores. So if this is my hard limit, what is the meaning of that? If your namespace reaches to the soft limit, it will not block you from deploying the another pod. It will give some error or something like that. But the moment you reach hard limit, it will not allow you to add any other pod. It will say that it is forbidden because you have reached the highest limit. So defining in the resource quota, defining the soft quota is called as request. And defining the hard limit is called as the limit. These are the two important words are there, which we'll see multiple times whenever you are coming across the applying the resources or resource quota to the any pod or set of the pod or namespace. I hope that you have understood the meaning of these two words, request and limit. Request is nothing but a soft limit and hard limit is my limit. So let's define. So if you are specifying 2 cores of this one and 2 GB RAM up to this particular namespace quota, then you can also similarly you can specify the quota for each one. You can define the soft quota for the pod as well as hard quota for the pod. Right, so that whatever the application is residing inside this pod will not limit the or it will not consume the resources which more than the hard limit. So you can deploy at the pod level, as the container level or the namespace level. So how many pods will be occupied inside this namespace depending on the how much hard quota you have applied for each pod inside the namespace. Okay, so let's jump into the defining the namespace called as the quota, and inside that we'll try to deploy the limits. Okay. So let me just show you through the take you to the some of the couple of slides so that it will be better for understanding. So what is the resource quota? Resource quota is a consumption quota per namespace, as I told you earlier. The quota system keeps track of resources created by the users and ensure that the hard limits are not exceeded. This is important, right? It is same way we do the quota application in the Linux environment for the users, for the groups, right? From on the basis of inode numbers and on the basis of blocks. Same concept is there here also. But here we are specifying on the basis of CPU and RAM utilization. Okay, so compute resources like CPU and memory can be limited in a namespace. Now, number of objects of a kind can be limited per namespace, right? So not only CPU and memory can be limited, we can limit the how many services you would like to create in the one namespace, how many pods you would like to create in one namespace, right? And all of how many config maps you would like to you want to allow inside the namespace. Okay, that type of the resources also you can control. You can control that application, so that you should not allow more than 10 pods. You should not allow the services more than 10 services inside one quota, one namespace that we can define inside the resource quota. That I will show you guys how to do that. When a cluster is shared among several items, it becomes necessary to limit the amount of resources that can be used by them. Otherwise, what will happen? There are 100 users in the organization. One of them is using a 98% of the CPU and RAM, another 98 are using just 2% of that. So that becomes an unequal distribution, uneven distribution. So it is better to apply the quota. And how to apply the quota? You can see the YAML definition here. Okay, and you can see here. This is my kind called as resource quota, right? And this is the name called as a quota. Namespace is called as a quota, and inside that we have defined the limit hard, right? For on the quota namespace. Here you can say that request.cpu is 1, so this is my soft limit. And what is my hard limit? It is a 2 cores. What is my soft limit for the memory? 1 GB, and what is hard limit is the 2 GB. Right. So now we can modify this resource quota definition anytime, and you can reapply it also. That is possible, but it should not exceed more than the whatever the limit you whatever the resources your worker nodes are having. You need to keep a track of that one, otherwise it will create a problem. So what, there is a question that called as why we define a soft quota. So when you start a pod, so minimum amount of CPU and RAM will be assigned to that particular pod is what a soft quota is. All right. One second, guys. Let me go to the next slide now. Okay, now we have discussed about this. So limiting the resources, containers in a pod can specify the resource requirement. Limit specify the maximum the container would go up to, and request the minimum need for the container. That is what the question, and guys, I wanted to explain. So here you can see how we can define this quota. Look at this. For my container called as nginx image, I have a limit. This is my maximum. This is a hard limit. And what is my minimum requirement? That whenever my container will start, it will start with this amount of information, this amount of resources. But it can reach up to this, not beyond that. That is my hard limit, and this is my soft limit. Okay. So now, okay, that's it, guys. Now let me show you how we can deploy it, and then I will come back to the question, because once we do the deployment, I hope that you will have a lot of questions, and some of the questions will get clarified when we solve it by showing some examples. So let me create a namespace, kubectl create namespace as quotas. Okay. Now you can see here kubectl get. Let me describe it. Describe namespace called as quotas, and what information you will have here. It shows that no resource quota is applied on this particular namespace. No limit range is there. No resource quota is applied. I want to apply the resource quota on this one. Okay, so let's see how to do that. Let me go to the documentation. There is a quota.yaml file is there, and let me go there and see. Vi quota.yaml. Now this is based on namespace. We are applying the quota on the namespace. That how many what is the request is one CPU, and what is the limit? 2 cores. And for memory it is 1 GB and 2 GB. I hope that much memory is available inside the pods. So how do I check it? I can check by using the command called as kubectl get top nodes, and you can see that it is using 132 millicores. It has 48 millicores, and it is just 6% and 2% of it. So you have more than that. So I think when I apply this vi quota.yaml, this should work. So what I will do, I'll just change it. I will make it here. Okay, let it be 1 now here. Okay, let it be like this. Let me deploy it. kubectl okay, so let me use some other namespace. Create namespace called as my favorite namespace Vadapav. I hope that is okay with you guys. And let me apply the quota on YAML. And this is my namespace called as Vadapav. You can use anything, guys. Prod dev. Okay, and let me apply kubectl apply -f quota.yaml.
Typo. Apply.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah. Now you can see that kubectl describe namespace called as Vadapav, and you should be able to see the limits. Okay, how many? What is the hard limit? 2. Right now it has been not used anything. 2 GB of RAM. Okay, like this we can use. Now, now let's create the pod inside that. So how do I create a pod? So we have a definition for that as well. So let me open the one definition of quota-pod.yaml so that it can save our time, and we can modify it as per our requirement, guys, not an issue. So this is my pod called as a quota pod, and the namespace is Vadapav now. Vadapav, correct. And the name of the container, let it be quota container, there is no problem. And see the limit. Memory, we are going to assign that is 100 megabytes. And CPU is 1000 millicore. And 1000 millicore is nothing but 1 core. And what is the request? Yeah, so this is the highest limit. And to start with, it is 350 millicore and 600 millicore. Okay, guys. So let me see that. And you know what is the hard limit we have assigned to the namespace quota? Quota called namespace called as Vadapav. 2 gig. That is 2 cores. That is 2000 millicores. So let me first of all draw the diagram so that confusion will not happen. So what is my hard limit here is 1 GB. Sorry, request can be anything. What is my hard limit is 1 core, if I'm not wrong. What is it? Yeah, 2 cores are there. So this is my 2 core and 2 GB, 1 GB of RAM, 2 GB of RAM. So this is perfect, guys. This is hard limit is perfect, as well as soft limit is also perfect, right? It is 1 GB and 1 core. So correct. So this is my namespace called as a Vadapav, and this namespace has this limit we have applied. So first of all, I am going to create one pod. And now here I want to apply some limits here. So what you want to request soft limit for this pod? Let's say that I want this pod to use request is CPU is equal to, let's say that 500 millicores. Sorry, guys. Okay, so it is 500 millicores. And my memory is, let's say, 500 megabytes. Okay, and limit is CPU, let's say 700 millicores, and memory is let's say 700 megabytes. So if this is the quota applied, limit applied, or resource quota applied for this one pod, how many such pod we can apply with the same quota limit in this namespace? Will it consider the minimum? Will it consider the hard quota, or will it consider the soft quota? That is that also we need to monitor, right? And how many such containers will be allowed to create? So I have maximum 2 cores, right? And if it is my 500 millicore, so not more than 4 pods can be accommodated. So any one of this limit gets crossed, so your pod will not get deployed. So let's try out deploying this one, guys. So vi quota.-pod dot YAML. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to apply memory limit as CPU is 700 millicore and memory is 700, right? So request is 700 millicores and sorry, memory 700. Okay, CPU is 700 and memory is
the request is 500, sir.
Yes, correct. Request is 500. Sorry, I'm so sorry. So this is 500. Yeah, this is a little bit in the, and this is my 700. Okay, guys, and let me deploy this pod now. kubectl. So what is the namespace? Have I changed the namespace? Yeah, okay, I have changed. kubectl apply -f quota dashpod dot YAML. So it is created, right? So now kubectl describe namespace called as a Vadapav, and you can see now here it shows that how much it has been used. Let me deploy one more pod using, I'll just change the name of the pod. Let limit remain same. And now see the quota, namespace level quota. Okay, so it is showing double, right? It has been request has been now completed, right? So it has mapped. Now let me try out one more pod. Pod 2. Even if I keep the same container name, it is not going to make any changes. What will happen? Will it allow me to create the new pod now? It has forbidden, right? So what it says that this is exceeded. It is creating a pod because it is forbidden because you're exceeding the quota. This is the reason it is showing. So if I want to modify the namespace, how should I do that? I can use the PI, what was the name, quota.yaml, and I can change it here. So I can say that now my limit is for this one is, let's say, but I think that is a maximum it might have, let's say 3, and I want to change it to 3 GB. Okay, and let me deploy this. kubectl apply -f quota.yaml. Yeah, it has worked, and let's describe it. It has changed. Can I deploy the pod now? Because it gave the error a little bit earlier, because it has crossed it has touched to the highest limit. So it should, oh, why it is not creating? Yeah, because it is soft limit also got
You.
I need to change this as well, right? Oh, I have changed the, yeah, correct. That's absolutely. I need to review this also. So let me go back. Sorry. Yeah, here, this one. I need to change the request also. Not pod. I want to change it for the namespace. Okay, and I need to upgrade this, right? That is the request limit need to be upgraded here to make it 2. Let me save it. Let me apply this new thing. And now let me try to apply the pod. Yeah, it is created, right? So basically, even though soft limit it is reaches, it will make sure that, so it is similar like that, right? And you have 100 rupees with you, and there are You have 100 rupees with you, and there are 5 candidates. You want to give the amount to them. So what you said that my maximum is 20, and minimum request, that is the limit is $20, and request is $10, right? So you will not, if somebody else asks you, let's say this, put this way now. Okay, so these are the, let's say 5 candidates are there, and you have $100 with you. This is you here, and what you decide that I can offer maximum $20 to each one. That is my limit, and you say that request is $10. Okay, so maximum you have, that means what is the limit of this yours limit? Yours limit is that let me put it this way. Your request limit is $50 maximum, and what is the limit maximum that you have is $100. Let's say. Now the situation is that you have given everyone $10. Everyone is now equipped with the $10. Okay, and suddenly this particular candidate comes and says that I want more $. Okay, so will you be able to provide? You will be able to provide, but what will be the maximum limit? 20, but not beyond that you will be able to assign. You will not say that, look, I have now only I have given $50, I still have $50 and take the $40 or remaining 50 for you, or $40 for you. No, you cannot apply that. You have to distribute it equally. You cannot give the more number of resources to one once it is defined inside the YAML file of that. So whatever is the request is amount is there, that you first of all you give to this pod, and maximum to the individual you can give the 20. But if none of them are asking for the maximum and you have still $40 left out, you cannot assign that to this one. You just can't do that. You can maximum you can give only $20, not $40 to the one of the pod, and that is the reason it is failed. And that's why I need to increase the request also at the namespace level as well as the limit, and then only it can accommodate one more pod here. This is for explaining you that concept. I have taken this example. I hope that it is clear now. Okay.
So why to define request then for individual pods? Better to set the limits. So why? Because I mean, you can define, because you said once the pod comes up, it will take that amount of CPU and memory. But then at the initial phase only, it will be allocating.
Yes, correct.
20 or
no, it will be allocating to $10 only.
10 only. Okay.
10 only. It will not be allocating 20. Once a workload is deployed, people have started using it, then it will go up to 20, but not beyond that. Namespace will not allocate.
But then once it assigns 20 to one pod, then it will parallelly assign it to the rest of the pods, right? Because you said it can't be allocated to one pod at one time.
No, it can't. It can't assign you to the different pods, because see, it is saying that I just want $10 or $12 only. That's it. That is my workload, right? But its maximum limit is $20. You cannot remove the $8 from this one and give it to this fellow if it has reached $20, because it's maximum limit. Yeah, it's upper limit.
So let's say the limit is 100 as you have defined here, and for individual pod the limit is 20. So initially when the 5 pods came up, okay, then $10 will be assigned to each pod. But then in the meantime, after some time, if pod 1 needs more, memory or CPU, whatever, okay,
Right.
then can more resources be allocated to this particular pod?
Yes, it can.
Or no?
Yeah, it can take it. But the limit is $2.20.
Yeah, limit is 20. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
But then what you are saying is once the upper limit has been reached, which is 20, then it can't be. Yeah,
Yes, even though your namespace has more amount of space left out, but still
okay,
you cannot assign it to this.
Okay, thank you.
Right. That is the upper limit. Okay. Let
So
me take
but
the question.
yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
Let me
So
take
in
the question.
then in that case, that remaining 40, it will be a waste, right?
Yes, it
If-
will be waste. Yes, it will be
Pardon?
waste. It will be
Okay.
waste. You
Yeah,
have
yeah,
to
okay.
you have to modify the YAML file then.
Acha, one more thing, sorry to ask out of the box, but if you're using a deployment, kind of deployment, where we send a replica set, so how that will
Yeah, if you have a 5 replicas, then this is the maximum limit that each pod will get. It will be individual.
okay.
Yeah. Pod is a pod, whether it is a static pod or whether it is a deployment pod. It will
Yeah,
have the
means
same.
what I was assuming is like it will create one set, and then the moment suppose if I closet 20, it will get another pod, the second replica, and then again it will divide the memory to 20 limits. If again suppose the requirement comes another requirement has suit up, so it will again create another replica till 5. Suppose if you have a create deployment of 5 replica. On creating, right?
Right, that is auto scaling you are saying, HPA.
I'm just trying to stitch two things like because
yeah, that we can do, but it will not go beyond the upper limit of
yeah,
the namespace.
yeah, got it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Let me take the questions from the chat box, please. Give me some time, guys, if you don't mind. Okay. So question has started from the can we dynamically modify the resource quota? I hope that from where the question has started. Yeah, okay, we are back. There is an issue with the Redis. Yeah, that is okay. What is the use case? Surendra, Redis is a separate third party hub. Okay, that is a different. I think you have discussed it. Okay, fine. Can we dynamically? Venkatesh is asking, can we dynamically modify the resource quota on namespace dependently? Yeah, we can do that, right? We have seen it, Venkatesh, right? Okay. I hope that it is clear, Venkatesh, for you now.
Yes, Ramesh, you already cleared that.
Sumanta, I think this is also clear, right? Why we define soft limit.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. By Ramesh, you are asking something by default. Is there any specific?
No, I got it. I thought like there might be something with a limit default. It will take a soft or hard. So I got it. We have to mention in our YAML file. I got it. Thanks, Ramesh, for that.
Okay. Vivek is asking, is it also possible to limit how many deployment we can create in one? Yes, that we can do, Vivek. And I'll show you that. I'll show you that. Because I have not taken that. I need to take it.
So one more thing on this, Ramesh.
Yeah.
If you have a worker node limit, like you have a quota defined on the worker node, okay, you have 8 CPU on worker node and 8 gig of memory allocated to the worker node. Now on the worker node, you are creating a quota on particular namespace. You have 5 namespaces, right? Let's say then the namespace will be having its own quota. I have, but that cannot be exceeding the worker node quota, right? Because that's your hard supersede your requirement otherwise.
Right. You're correct. Absolutely. You have cumulatively whatever there are total number of worker nodes, their CPU, their RAM. You have to consider that, and then you have to define the namespace quota. It is not specific for one worker node. It is cumulatively for all worker nodes.
Okay, because the namespace is not specific to one worker node, right? Because it can be, it can spread your deployment in multiple worker nodes.
Correct. Absolutely.
And one more question, if you don't mind, the namespace when we are defining a namespace, there will be only one quota file, or we can have multiple quota file, on one particular names, or it's a one-to-one relation?
No, you can define it. You can define multiple resource quotas on that, but then it is not going to.
So why I'm asking this question is, let's say you have 3 deployment or maybe 5 deployment in one namespace, and you have created one quota YAML file for that namespace, and you bind it to the namespace that this is my default namespace quota file. So each deployment will go to use that quota file, right? But I don't want to specific the deployment to use only restrict to use that quota file, right? I want to use that, okay, I have 3 deployment and each deployment has its own requirement. And then I can use multiple namespace quota file, right?
No, so basically, let's say that you have one application list. This is your application one, and it might have, it is a deployment actually. It might have 5 pods or 4 pods. You have another one, and this is inside one namespace, if you are saying. Okay. So what you can do, you can define the quota, one quota only, sorry. You can define one resource quota here at the namespace level, and then individually you can define the namespace quota for the deployments.
No, I'm not getting. So you have one namespace and 2 deployment, application 1 deployment and application 2 deployment. I want to use application 1 deployment resource quota 1, application 2 deployment resource quota 2. So I have 2 resource quota for that namespace. Is it possible?
No, that is possible. But we cannot exceed more than whatever you already said. Let's say that overall this namespace. Let me try to deploy it. This is something which is interesting. Give me just 1 minute, guys. This is quota, let's say, and cp quota.yaml tool. Let me first of all check whether this is taking a multiple quota or not. Yeah, quota1.yaml, and the namespace is Vadapa only, and the name of the resource quota is one quota 1. And let me put it same, or maybe a different one. Okay, let it be like this, guys. Save it and kubectl apply -f quota1.yaml. Yeah, it is having. So kubectl describe namespace called as Vadapa, and you can see there are 2 quotas are there. Yes, this is happening. We can apply the multiple quotas on one namespace. Okay, and now another question.
So
is
now
that,
create 2 deployment in that namespace.
And you can apply the resource quota. Yes, we can define that. That we can define. Deployment.
Yeah, my requirement is to create one deployment using quota, other deployment with names quota 1.
That is possible. That is possible. You have to define the property inside the pod definition that use from this resource quota, use from that resource quota. Reference, you need to define the reference.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
So the total quota, sorry, Ramesh, will be addition of both, or that part I'm not sure. Like when you have 2 quotas limit verified.
Right,
so
right.
Will it be addition of both, or what will the max quota there?
No, as per the namespace, it will be addition of both.
Okay.
It will be addition of both. But basically, you should have that much CPU and RAM at the your worker node. That is one criteria.
But normal practice is to have one file, right? Otherwise,
Yeah, normal practices have one file, but this is also availability. I will check right now. I don't have the. I have not tested that way application by taking the resource quota from one resource quota and from the different resource quota. I will check it in my off time. And when I get a time, I will explain in the next time. This is interesting now, because normally this case doesn't come, but I will check it. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Vivek, for asking that question.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, Abhiram, when do we use hard limit, soft limit? Is this clear now, Abhiram, for you?
Yeah, it's clear. So it's more of a place. See, one thing, Ramesh, is like this hard limit, soft limit is given by whom, and how we derive it is like, so that is something with performance tuning and those kind of things, right? I mean, that's how we get.
Okay.
Correct. So now
yes,
that's one of the place, and then, but again, so, and also I can have the soft limit, hard limit. Now you put it at namespace level, like, so that once you put it at namespace level, this will be applied for container and pod, right? Because
yeah, it will apply. Yeah, it will apply on the container level.
Container level, pod level, and even to when you say namespace, it is applied to underlying container.
Yes, basically only always think about two parameters in the resource quota. One thing is that you can apply the resource quota on namespace level, and second one is that you can apply at the pod level. When we say pod level, that means container level only, because container is the property of the pod, and resource quota is the property of the container. Okay.
And also, can you go to that command, Ramesh, the one which you were running, right? Describe. This takes from the limit CPU memory and request CPU and request memory. The 4 liners, is it takes from the way the YAML file is written? Because is that how you open the YAML file?
Yeah, it actually takes it from the YAML file. But one thing is that when it is not using anything, it is taking from the YAML file. But it will actually give the usage. Let's say that if any of the pod is now utilizing more than the your request limit, it will show that it is going more than that. It will show that. So basically, it is a live one. It is a live one.
Okay. If I want to change it, will it? See, I know you applied that, but applying that won't changing and applying that changes will not impact my transaction in production, right? If I do it in production.
No, that will not. In fact, that is a good for the. You can increase it, but always think before decreasing it.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. I hope that your questions are clear now, right, Abhimanyu?
Yeah.
Which quota is referred by default? You are saying this one out of these two, right? Ramesh?
Yeah.
I need to test this one. I need to test it. Okay. Because never tested this scenario.
No problem, Ramesh.
Yeah. Abhiram is saying I can update and guys, you also work on this, so this is a beautiful problem. I can update the hard limit. Does it?
Yeah, that is, you have answered it. That's okay. You can take next.
Dan, can we use another? Yeah, I have used that one. Surinder, resource allocation for each pod when you are creating pods. Yes, correct. This is what the resource quota is.
Yeah, I got that answer.
What is this question, Abhiram? You are saying that I can limit OS.
See, I was telling, like I know we are talking about limit when it comes to limit CPU and memory, but when it comes to full application, we have a disk and OS disk and data disk, like Cassandra or any of the database. So, and also we say ephemeral or those kind of things, right? I mean, does my question is, the limits applies to only to CPU or memory or to other data disk or OS disk also, or those kind of things, or if there is anything else other than CPU memory, what it is, So I just was trying to understand.
Yeah, it is there. It is there, Abhiram. Other than the CPU and RAM, it is there. There are certain parameters, but not all. There are very few of them which can be added as the CPU, other than the CPU and RAM. And other than that, in the quota also we can define the how many pods you can create, how many deployments you can create, how many services you can create. That also you can define as a resource quota. But apart from the CPU and RAM, which is inside the computing power, there are certain other parameters also there. Okay, but right now, because of the time constraints, I'm not able to show you. But you
No
can go to
problem.
the Kubernetes.io, and I think you will be able to see that there. You can just search it.
Awesome. Okay,
Okay.
just for this
Yes.
quota limit, I should get all the parameters there, right? That's what I want to know. Okay.
Yes. There are parameters. Couple of parameters are more.
Okay.
And also, just to add you, Abhiram, you can see the Kubernetes explain command to, because I think Ramesh has showed us a couple of examples before to get all the details.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Shirish is asking, is it like for one pod is memory is 1 GB and so? Shirish, have you got the answer of this question? I think Shirish is there or he has left. Can you just unmute and speak with me? Okay, we'll come back to you, Shirish. Yes, it is like something like upper limit if it is a limit, and request is something called as a to start with, Venkatesh. Right, Venkatesh, I hope that you got this answer of this question.
Yes, Ramesh.
Yeah. Anirban, I think we have seen this exercise, right?
Yeah, hello, Ramesh. That the thing which you told that that the request limit has exceeded, and that's why the pod creation has been failed. I missed that thing. Why
Okay.
the
If you don't mind, Anirban, because of the time constraints, can you please look into the video? If you still have the question, you can ask me the next question or raise it.
sure.
Please. Huh? Because it is already we have crossed 10 minutes, and there are other parameters also need to be considered. Okay, Surendra is asking, generally we have 4 CPUs and 8 30.
I can explain in that. So we have the 4 CPU and 8 to 32 gig memory, something like that. So how can we know that? If you give this 2 CPUs and 15 GB memory to one namespace, like as in a dev namespace. So when we, in this example, we use one CPU and 500 GB, 500 megabyte to pod allocation, right? So this is some big application. If you have a microservices, how we do know that how many CPUs and how much memory we need to allocate for the each microservices? Because in microservices, we deploy number of microservices onto as a dev environment. So how do we know that?
There is only one
we need to
answer.
allocate.
Yeah, there is only one answer for this one, and that is application benchmarking.
What do you
I
mean
think
by
Surinder, Ramesh, correct me if wrong. Surinder, I think you have to use a tool to monitor maybe Grafana or Prometheus and Grafana.
Yeah, I understand that.
No.
But
that is not the question. His question is this one, that how to define that how much I can allocate as a request and limit, right? So answer to this one is that I said application benchmarking. Application benchmarking is nothing but when you are deploying any application inside the microservice as a microservice, we have to test it, and we have to test it very badly. We have to check the stress testing, we have to check the network bandwidth, we have to check how much CPU is required for one process to complete, we have to check how much RAM is required to complete one process. And once you complete that scenario with the 1 user, 100 user, 10,000 user, and 1 lakh user, then you will come across some statistics, and that statistics can be used as a reference, and then you can, that is called as application benchmarking, and then you can say that, look, I want to use, you have to use this much CPU and RAM for this much particular this pod in this application. So unless and until we don't do the testing, nobody in the world will be able to tell you.
so that testing is called as a stress testing.
Yes, stress testing is for
load testing.
Load testing, you can say.
Load
Performance
testing. Okay,
testing.
got it.
Yeah.
Load testing. Okay.
That is very important. And actually, always see, guys, I will be discussing the same thing when we have high availability discussion. But important thing is that when you start any container, without load, without any application, see how much CPU and RAM is required. When you start the application, how much CPU and RAM is required. When only one request is coming to the container, see how much CPU and RAM is required. And then gradually you increase the load and then you measure it. And at the certain point of time, you will come to know that when your application is crashing. Right? Application also has a limit, right? You have to think from that aspect also. How many concurrent users my application can handle? Forget about the CPU and RAM. That also need to be tested. I hope that Surendra, I answered your question.
Oh yeah, I got it.
Thank you.
Is there any document like as in a performance testing for the Kubernetes, something like that?
Yes, that is what I am creating. Many of Abhiram and other people have also requested. Other people, I think almost 10 to 15 people have requested for the same. I am working on that one. I am preparing that. I am planning to have one session on that. But if I get the at least documented, created, that will be great because I'm busy with little bit other corporate trading also in the daytime. So life is little bit hectic nowadays.
Okay. Thanks, Ramesh.
But I will definitely make it. Don't worry.
Yep. Thank you, Ramesh.
That's it, guys. From my side for today, we have completed something called as.
I have one more question.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So I missed this describe namespace Vodapau. Why we have the 2 resources quota?
No, the question came, right? I never thought about this one. Why should we have 2 resource quotas? But this question came from the Vivek. The question was that how we can we have a 2 resource quota on namespace? Okay. Then now which quota will, then another question came that which will be default quota it will use. Third is that how to assign the resource quota to individual deployments. So these are the certain questions I am taking with me right now. I need to work on this one and come back with you.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Ramesh.
Ramesh, I have a question. I mean, so the thing is that tomorrow, if I want to change the limit and request, then I have to create a separate YAML file, right? There is no other way.
You can edit it.
We can edit.
Yes, you can edit it. kubectl edit namespace
and then apply. And then apply the change, right? Okay.
Yeah, if you don't have the YAML file, you can edit the namespace also like this. But I have applied with the this one, right? What is that called as resource quota?
Yeah.
YAML file is there. Huh? I need to change that YAML file and it will work. Yes. Yes, Gavin, I will just share that. But Gavin, there is no Ravi, there is no questions. Please send that right to them. Thank you. But you need to share the if I have created any new YAML file which is not in the activity guide, I request you to please open that YAML file and paste that into a document file and give it to all the participants on the portal so that they will have more YAML files for the reference purpose.
Ramesh, I have one more question last, but is it okay if I ask now or you want me to ask like next week?
No, ask. Let's finish that today only. Yeah.
This question, like if you can go to your diagram.
Yes.
So you said that the upper limit is like 20 and whatever is left out, it will be wasted, right? So is there any other scenario, like if our particular application needs more memory other than the upper limit 20, we need to increase that. If we change that to some other limit, like maybe 30 or 40,
right,
will we get the additional space which is left out on the namespace?
Yes. Yeah, you can reuse that.
Pulled over, right? So in order to do that, we need to first change our upper limit for the particular application.
Yes, correct. You have to change the YAML file for the deployment with the resource quota, and that's it. You will be able to do that.
So, okay, in that case, technically speaking, it will not be left out as wasted one, right? The stores, I mean, the limit or the resources.
Yes, right. In this scenario, it was a wastage. But make sure that you increase the resource quota for this particular application pod. Then it will take if there is a available space from the higher limit, then it will only pick up that space. Otherwise, not. In short, it should be free. It should be available there.
Okay, so everything depends upon our host level resources. Yeah, host level resources. Basing on that, we mention we define our resource limits, and on top of that, if our application needs, then we need to go through the leftover which is there in the namespace. If in case we need more, increase the namespace, then increase the application deployment.
Yes, correct. That is true.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, guys. I think that's it from my side. I hope, is there any other question comes in your mind?
Just was one last question. Can you just, you were showing something to relate to edit, right? One of the question asked by Venkat. What was that scenario? I'm not able to get that.
No. The question was that, can I edit how I edit the name resource quota for the Vodafone?
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
One thing, this
thank you, Ramesh.
Ramesh, the quota thing, whether it's on-premise or it is from, say, from a Google or from a Azure or from this one. So ultimately, that is manageable. I mean, going from cloud is manageable, right? I can release if I see that something is excess, right? Or order dusted.
Yes.
How? But in case of on-premise, I cannot do anything because hardware is already invested, right? That way I can think of, or how it is.
See, the concept remains same at both locations.
Correct.
Okay, so now depending on where is your cluster, and if there is no availability of the hardware resources, then you cannot do it, right?
Correct.
And if you have a good amount of hardware resources on the cloud, you can use it. But if there is also a restriction on the cloud, you will not be able to use it. This is both way, it is same concept.
Okay.
All right.
But mostly on the cloud, will you go for high availability, right? So is it really required for this quota system now?
Yes. Unnecessarily, some of the application, if there is a memory leakage or something like that, it will eat up a lot of memory. Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Thanks,
So we need
Ramesh.
blocks of memory.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, take care. Take care in Mumbai.
Yeah, sure. It is very dangerous here now. I'm sitting in
Yeah.
home and giving the session now.
Yeah. Take
I,
care.
I think there is only one limitation. Once you define the limit, right, then it is not able to dynamically allocate or deallocate, right, between the pods.
No, right. That is not possible. You have to change the YAML file. You have to change the resource limits.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Ramesh. Take care. Yeah.
Thank you, Vipasha. Thank you, Sumanta. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, guys. Take care to you too also. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.